Open versus closed. Tom did a tweet here. This thing's got a lot of attention here, almost 100,000 views on it. Let's see what he had to say. I just went over all their information from the beta, and I think that's what he's quoting here. The Battlefield 6 beta results were inevitable, and this is the exact response that I predicted. Open versus closed weapon was never a fair comparison when one playlist is buried, unexplained, and hidden from casual players with a Hulu-style user interface. I completely agree. This is something that I completely roasted Call of Duty for having this type of interface, for choosing the maps, especially on mouse and keyboard. It is complete ass because you got to go click a little arrow to slide over versus just having all of the stuff in front of you. He's referring to the open playlist where you can use any weapons despite your class, or closed weapons. If you're playing engineer, you're locked to using a submachine gun or that class specific weapon versus, a sniper being able to bring a submachine gun or something like that. And it was only really available via one mode. So it was like you got to play closed weapon for all out warfare rather than you couldn't queue into closed weapon domination, TDM, if they even had that, King of the Hill, and all the other modes. And then it wasn't explained in that if you don't watch a YouTuber who's talked about this before, pretty much, or read about it in comment sections, played Battlefield in the past, if you're a new player coming from COD or coming from a different game, you're not even going to know what's going on with that, which, to my point of what I was discussing, is like, maybe that's not the worst thing. Anyways, why even get caught up into that? There are reasons, but his point is that it was not explained or clarified. Of course, most people stick with the default, right? They're going to click the one that's at the top because they also just want to get into a game very quickly. Or they even search for the custom mode. That's what I did a lot of, where you search for the specific map and playlist that you want to. And of course, that does not have an open versus closed option, so you couldn't really test it there. The main thing that I took away from the message here was that they didn't know the difference between, if they were comparing apples to apples. If they're comparing Conquest on this map, open, Conquest this map closed, they saw similar statistics. The only difference they saw was more revives happening in longer games on closed weapons, but it was only by like 1 or 2%. Maybe it wasn't even statistically significant. I don't know. And there are ways to isolate other factors out, but it's hard to isolate out this point that he's opening with, which is very true. And that was my main thing that I was even talking about when I read through this. The beta didn't prove players preferred open weapons. It only proved how easy it is to steer data when you control the visibility. One option was front and center with exclusive modes. Exactly. And the other was push aside with no context. That's not player preference. That's rigging the outcome. And I think the thing that I took away from their message again is that I don't think they even found that players like one way or the other. I think their solution to that is, hey, we have both of them available in Portal. The difference is that they didn't really. Maybe they did. We'll read it again, but I don't think they said players prefer to play open. Maybe they did though. But either way, I don't think that's the truth. To Tom's point as well, that's not actually the case. It never was properly tested for that. But I don't think they care about that. I think they want it to be open. And they should just say that, if that's the case. Just be like, listen, we think it's going to be better open. We think we're going to be able to get more players from this elsewhere. That's just what we're going with. Rather than being like, this is what you guys wanted when it was this level of comparison. That's not player preference. That's rigging the outcome. You didn't discover what players want. You decided it. I'm excited for launch, and I'll be playing a mix, both depending on the friend group I'm playing with, but let's not pretend that this is player-driven data. So let's see. Lastly, another key insight from the open beta was that the vast majority of players, after trying both modes, chose to stick with open weapons. Yep, okay, it is that. It is that. They are saying that players chose that over it. But it's a hard comparison. I feel like that is a hard thing to actually say is the case. This reinforces our belief that the open weapons is the right path for Battlefield 6. At the same time, we recognize that players prefer both closed and open weapons. Yeah. The closed weapon playlist was always next to the open weapon mode. Proof Conquest was right next to the closed weapon one. Closed weapon Conquest and Conquest. That is fair. But where's the domination on all the other ones? That's the early access. And also, What about even searching? Like in the search, you could search for, I could tick open. No, I couldn't. I could tick the mode and I could tick the map, but I couldn't choose open or close off of it. And again, I'm more on the side of open is probably better, but I know most people don't agree with me on that within the Battlefield side. That was early access beta, I believe. They then took them out of the mosh pit style playlist and made the individual tiles. Closed was on the second page and open was just the default. So this is what Tom's point was. Here's custom, conquest. So all of these, this is close quarters. It's not closed weapons. This is something I accidentally clicked a few times thinking it was closed weapons. But this is close quarters. This is like domination, king of the hill, whatever. Most prefer the open. Open is bad. Yeah, people are pretty split on it, man. Especially the people who are like old school Battlefielders. I have a lot of them in my audience. They're very much in the closed category. And it has been a big debate online. I really haven't been super involved in it. I don't have as strong of opinion on it, but I know a lot of people do. After trying both playlist types, chose to stick with open weapons. Valid point as well. I addressed this point of the post. These exclusive modes forced closed weapon enjoyers to play open in order to access their favorite modes like Conquest and Rush, which debuted exclusively as open. Closed options include breakthrough or combination of breakthrough, conquest, and rotation, and custom search didn't allow for closed filtering. This is what I was saying, meaning that to play your desired mode, you had to choose, you had no choice but to play the open weapons, which is exactly true. That's mostly how I played the game. But if it's saying, so like it's saying if you played both of them, you'd prefer to play open afterwards. I did play both of them, and I did play more open afterwards, but it was because that was the only way I could play the game. So I think there's more evidence that you can, there's more that you can conclude between testing open, and this is what I took more away from the actual post that they're quoting here, was that there's more that I could take away from comparing the gameplay styles of open and closed. There's more revives in closed weapon playlists. I think part of that is just those people that are willing to go queue closed probably know the game better, excuse me. And so they're probably going to be more likely to res, more likely to sit and wait for the res because they know they're going to bleed tickets. And the game differences were only 2% difference. So that's that according to their data. But you can actually get a comparison there versus, this. I do agree that they wanted open weapons to win. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't think you can really argue against that. But read the way that they formulated the sentences. It's not open weapons had more players, so it's what we're going with. It's players who played both modes had to chose to spend their time in the open playlist. Yeah, but this is what I'm saying too, is that the only way I could play it was in open. I didn't even have the like, if I wanted to search and go play Liberation Peak and fly vehicles, I could not do that any other way. And even doing that, I still had to back out of modes constantly. That's why I said that they swayed us by having exclusive modes and open weapons playlists. You couldn't play modes like Conquest or Rush for days unless it was open. And this was how it started as well. They added more later. In fact, the only way, I never even remembered seeing this. I don't think I even noticed this ever. Closed weapon conquest. The only way I ever saw closed weapon, to my knowledge, was when it was combined with breakthrough and conquest. And that's not how I personally choose to play the game. I would choose to play conquest and queue into that, and then I switch over to play breakthrough at a different time. I just stick in conquest. At least this is how I was choosing as a player to play. So again, I didn't even have this option whenever I was queuing, or at least I didn't see it. I don't remember seeing it, at least. Maybe it was there. We could go back in the VOD and look. I don't care enough to go back and look, honestly, though. Yet at the end of the day, they're offering both at launch. Yeah, this is the core thing, is that they are going to have both, and not even just about the open and closed, but also the big map. This was a big complaint from the beta. People were talking a lot about, how it was limited to only the small maps, and people wanted to play the big maps. You could just play the big maps if you want to in the full game when that comes out too, which we obviously didn't have on this either. Both are going to be there, so what's the problem? Martin says in chat too. Yeah, Yeah, they're both going to be there because it's all good while we have the option. But who's to say that they don't just remove that option later down the line? I don't think they're going to remove it, or even in the next Battlefield title because their data suggests the open weapon has wider appeal and they can't support both. To be fair as well, in Battlefield 2042, I'm pretty sure that's how it is. Like if I play Conquest, you can use any weapon you want to. Or no, can you not? Yeah, look, if I'm on Sundance, which is a but this game was initially designed so there wasn't even classes. The fact that they even have classes all like an assault using SMG assault, but you see the assault has a benefit. That's how it's been in 2042, so they're kind of keeping that model, I think, a bit more. Suggests that open weapons has wider appeal and they can't support both with the new modes and balance changes. It sets a concerning precedent for longtime fans. Casual players will play whatever you present them first. If open is the default and featured front and center, closed will never be played by that wider audience. I think part of this, you could even argue the same thing for hardcore, where it's like not that many people even play hardcore, but there's a lot of people that do like it. But it's also going to be buried in a portal, which apparently has been the case since Battlefield 4. 2042 was classless. It was classless, yeah, until they just updated that not too long ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago or so, a year or two ago. I don't know. I don't remember. They're not measuring player preference. They're measuring exposure and deciding what casual players should be exposed to, not the core Battlefield experience that veterans come to know and love, expect from the franchise. Yeah, and I think that's fair, but I think a big part of this, and I think this is like the core of it, of what they're not saying, is that they're trying to expand the game's player base wider than just the existing Battlefield players. I think this is even the core of why they're doing Battle Royale as well, right? Like people have been wanting a Battle Royale for never in Battlefield. Majority of the old school Battlefield players that he's even talking about, they just want another Battlefield again. COD gets a new COD every single year, to the point that people are burnt out on it and they don't even care. Battlefield players are at the opposite end, where it's like we haven't even had a Battlefield for 10 years, like a classic good Battlefield, and we just want a multiplayer game. So then you mention, oh, and we're doing a BR and whatever. They don't even care. It'd be like if you hadn't had a COD for 10 years and you're like, yo, we're finally going back. We're finally gonna have Search and Destroy. We're gonna reintroduce Search and Destroy to the game. We're gonna have 6v6 classic. We're going to have a UAV in the game. We're going to have a chopper gunner. We're going to have dogs in the game again. Like old school stuff. We're going to put it in the game. We haven't had it for 10. Imagine, let's pretend this world where we don't have a COD every year. And then they're like, yo, guys, we're coming back with an extraction shooter. People would be like, what the hell are you guys doing? You know, I think that's where a lot of the Battlefield players are coming from the old school guys. But I think the actual Battlefield guys they're doing both. They want the multiplayer side, but then they also want everybody else to come over to their game. And so locking people into a very niche playstyle is going to be more niche. And they're trying to broaden it further than that. Again, I don't know because they haven't said any of this. I think it would go a long way if they just said it, and I think people would probably accept it if they did just say it. But I think it's worse, and I think where Tom's coming from even off of this is that they're making it seem like it's the player's choice for this when it doesn't really feel like they actually tested it. Or maybe they tested it in other experiences outside of this, but the beta didn't feel like a good test for it. Does that make sense? Mojo, thank you for the 7 months on the subbage as well. Curious how the progression is going to work. Yeah, we got a lot to figure out on that, how that's going to carry over to Battle Royale, what stuff's going to even be in Battle Royale. There's a lot of questions off of all of that. Let's see if there was anything else here. I'm okay with them coming out and saying, we want open weapons because we think it's better for this Battlefield. But this entire thing was rigged from the start. Exactly. This is my point as well. I tried to get into the closed weapons mode a couple of times, and I couldn't find a match. Not enough people knew what they were looking for. This was also day one of early access. Might be better later on, but I didn't try. I don't understand the outrage. Is their data a little inaccurate scientifically speaking? Sure. Are they supporting both weapon types? Yes. So gamers win. Open was always going to be the most popular option, even if it was not, even if it may not appear to be quite a minority fan favorite. Yeah, and I do think again this is going to just be more popular as a whole because it's just more ways to play the game. It's not as niche. Couldn't agree more. It'd be nice if it actually poll open and closed. Polls are just as hard to deal with. Looking past the potentially scummy location of the button. Does anything else have a lot of likes here? Not that I'm seeing. That looked like all the main arguments there. But yeah, I don't want to keep getting on to this topic too much, but there it is. We'll see what they say into the future of it. Either way, they're both going to be available. It is going to suck for probably queue times for people who do want to specifically play closed. And yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes at launch, right? If you want the true milsim class lock weapon, I don't even think that's necessarily milsim style. I mean, if it was more milsim, you should be able to pick up any weapon you want, right? Like if you see a weapon on the ground, you should be able to just pick it up without swapping the whole kit, your whole entire roll. That's something that to me that's a whole nother conversation. But when I play Battlefield, I always thought it was weird how if I have an AR and I kill a sniper, I can't just go up and pick that sniper rifle up and now have an AR and a sniper. I don't know. But that that's a whole nother discussion.